Good evening. The pilots were not to blame for the Ethiopian Airlines disaster, which claimed the lives of 157 people last month. An initial report says they followed all procedures recommended by the plane's manufacturer, Boeing. It was the second fatal crash involving the model, the 737 MAX 8, in the space of 6 months, and Boeing has grounded all of its MAX 8s worldwide. The company's chief executive said tonight that Boeing would do all it could to re-earn the trust and confidence of the public. Our transport correspondent, Tom Burridge, has more details.
Just seconds after takeoff, and this Ethiopian Airlines plane was repeatedly nosediving towards the ground. The pilots wrestled to pull up, but an automatic anti-stall mechanism on the new Boeing 737 MAX 8 was pushing the plane down. Investigators say the crew followed a procedure outlined by Boeing, but it didn't work. It then plunged 13,000 feet in 32 seconds.
The crew performed all the procedures repeatedly provided by the manufacturer, but was not able to control the aircraft.
On board 157 people, these just some of the victims. But 5 months earlier, another 737 MAX 8 crashed off Indonesia in a similar way, killing 189 people. The MAX is Boeing's latest version of its very popular 737. New, heavier engines make it much more fuel efficient, but in flight, their weight and position force the plane's nose up a bit. If the angle of flight becomes too high, then a plane can stall and crash. So Boeing designed a computer system on the MAX called MCAS, which automatically pushes the nose down. Before the MAX was grounded, that system relied on just one of two sensors at the front of the aircraft, which calculate the angle at which the plane is flying. But in both crashes, the data from that sensor was incorrect. So, as we've shown up here, the computer system thought the plane was at a high angle of attack, when in fact it wasn't. Look at what happens when the system kicks in. It was designed to do that, but instead it wrongly caused the plane to nosedive. Unaware of what was happening, the pilots pulled up. But the system was designed to reactivate again and again. And within minutes, they'd lost control.
She had leadership written all over her. She had compassion in an intellectually rigorous way. Everybody loved her.
Ralph Nader's great-niece was on the Ethiopian Airlines flight. Famous for battling and beating big multinationals over safety, a man who ran for the US presidency now plans to take Boeing to court.
Usually airlines and aircraft manufacturers get away with a quick settlement, a little bit of a public relations problem. My message to Boeing is, don't think this is going to happen again.
You can see that the aircraft is now in quite a steep dive. Now that's the effect of MCAS.
Captain Chris Brady has 18 years of experience flying 737s.
That's the stall warning to tell you the aircraft's about to stall.
He says so many issues now need to be reviewed.
The level of automation of the aircraft, the behind-the-scenes systems, the risk analysis processes that have gone through at Boeing, the oversight by the regulator, the conversion training, the level of training generally, the manual flying skills of the crews, the knowledge of these switches, all of it needs to be reviewed in light of these accidents.
Changes are being made to the MAX. On board a recent test flight, Boeing's chief executive. Tonight, in a carefully scripted video message, a recognition that the aircraft had malfunctioned. He promised a modified MAX would be among the safest planes ever to fly.
We know every person who steps aboard one of our airplanes places their trust in us. Together, we'll do everything possible to earn and re-earn that trust and confidence from our customers and the flying public in the weeks and months ahead.
But for now, hundreds are grounded, thousands of orders on hold, and multiple investigations will look at how the plane was signed off as safe to fly. Tom Burridge, BBC News.
Well, let's talk to our correspondent Nick Bryant, who's at Boeing's offices just outside Washington. We heard from the chief executive there, Nick, but they do face some very challenging questions, don't they?
They really do, and they're saying tonight they're continuing to work on the fix. We know that that fix includes updated software. We know it includes new guidelines for the pilots, and crucially, it includes the addition of a new sensor to guard against erroneous data. Now, in that video statement, Boeing CEO said It is our responsibility to eliminate this risk. We own it and we know how to fix it. And I think that confidence was reflected on Wall Street tonight, where Boeing's share price actually ended almost 3% up. The expectation there is that this grounded fleet will soon be allowed to fly again. I think that expectation is shared here too. A spokesman telling me earlier the time frame they have in mind is about 3 weeks. Now, work on this fix actually began after that plane went down off Indonesia, which begs the obvious questions. Why wasn't more urgency attached to the project then? Of course, Boeing's planes weren't grounded. Why weren't pilots given more specific warnings? And it's not just Boeing that's under investigation, it's the air regulator as well. Boeing once congratulated the Federal Aviation Authority for streamlining the certification process. Were safety standards compromised as a result?
Nick, thanks again. Nick Bryant there, correspondent at Boeing's offices outside Washington.